Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Coaches. 2-in-1 day. We didn't have time to go change our outfits for the men's podcast. So.
I think we look fantastic.
We're sporting the Raven Red, so that's the idea, right? So welcome back, head coach, Jerrid Schicke. Today, for this pod, we're going to be discussing, again, a 2-0 start for the men's soccer team at CCC. You had more exhibition games, I think, for men's, at least at home. I know we had one against KCK, but officially you guys are 2-0 as far as my limited research skills can find.
Well, you are correct, sir.
With a 5-2 goal differential, we mentioned in the women's that the least, you're looking for a clean sheet every game, but 5-2, a 2-0 start. It's been a good start to the season, at least from the broadcast side of things. The outsider, what do you think?
Oh, it could be clever scheduling on my part, Zach. But no, the team's doing all right. It's an interesting group with a lot of new faces, but a lot of returning guys as well. So it's taken me a while to get my recruiting base, and with the sheer competitiveness of the men's Jayhawk conference in soccer, I think we've got a group that can really put together some wins this year, and I'm optimistic of what we can do, but we still have got a lot that we need to get figured out.
Well, I guess growing, positive growth, but that's a good thing to have. Like, you have potential for that growth. You're not capped out at 2-0, right?
No, not at all, not at all. And that's what I have to keep reminding, especially the sophomores, because they battled last year. Last year's record wasn't a good indication of the effort that some of those freshman boys put in. But when they look back on the season and they see a 4-9-4 year, and then they look here and they go, "Oh, well, we're 2-0. This is great." And I say, well, we haven't started conference play, so let's keep that in mind. But it's nice for morale, and it's nice for the retention of those boys, because a lot of those guys stuck it out with me, no worries. I mean, there was really no spring scares of guys going, "Coach, everyone saw the potential that we had, and we just didn't play all that well last fall." And so we got all those guys back, and so it's a good affirmation for them that they've at least made the right decision.
Well, you mentioned 4 ties, and I think 3 of those came at home last year.
Yeah.
So that's games that could go either way. You might be looking at a 6-9 record, a 7-9. I mean,
we should have been 500 last year, easy. We beat the top teams in the conference and lost to everybody at the bottom. So, and that's on me. In the end, when the team does well, they get the accolades, and when we play poorly, it all falls on me. And that's the way it ought to be, because in the end, we ought to get things figured out. And so I think this is a new group, and it's a new year. I got a full staff for the first time. I've got a gentleman helping on my men's side, David Simmet, and he's got playing experience in the States. He's got coaching experience. He's got spent 2 years as a graduate assistant at Tabor. He's from Germany originally, and so he always reminds us that he's German, but he's been great. I mean, he's energetic, he's smart, and I think the boys have taken a liking to him, and so I think that helps a lot too.
Well, just my limited interaction. I mean, he seems very enthusiastic. Always, I don't know how he's in practice. Maybe if the effort isn't there from the players, but he seems a pretty positive guy, and I really think, I think he's. I mean, it's hard to quantify an assistant coach's impact, but a 2-0 start, and I see a lot of enthusiasm on the field when we're able to be down there and filming. So, I mean, could be worse, right?
Yeah, well, we've been splitting assistant coaching duties for my previous 3 years here, and that means I've had one assistant coach to help me with each of the programs, or with both of the programs. And so my previous assistant coach, when game day management became difficult, because he would be on the bench with me for my women's game, and then come halftime or before halftime, he had to shift his focus away to the men, and then go and then leave the women's side. And so I think there's a lot of value in having someone to help with each specific program. Coach Carley on the women and Coach Simmet on the men, because they're able to stay more focused individually on the programs that they're working with, even though they help me manage both teams off the field. And then that gives me the opportunity then to stay focused for 90 minutes on my women and not have to worry about how my my boys are warming up, and then shift over to my men and be able to stay focused on them and not worry about how my girls are taken care of after their game's over. So there's a lot of value that goes into that.
It seems like an underrated part of an evolution of a program.
That's very well put, Zach.
That was my one for the day.
That's very poignant. I mean, I tell you what, that's poignant. That's spot on. It is because it's something that the kids see too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as the coaches are concerned, or the kids are concerned, we've got 2 assistant coaches for each team.
Mm-hmm.
One spends more time with the other, but and as far as our day-to-day operations go, they both help each other out. Our whole family our whole program is a family. That's the vibe that we put men and women together, and so it's been great. It's been great.
Well, now I feel bad for splitting the podcast up.
No, I'm glad you did, actually, because I always leave people out when we do them in the same way. And then my girls especially, they hit me hard. They'll hit me hard for it. The boys, I think they listen to me talk, and if I don't mention them, then
tune out.
Yeah, well, I think they use it more as, I'm gonna show him why he ought to talk about me next time. And the girls go, you know what? I won't play hard anymore if you don't talk about me.
Well, we wouldn't want that.
Yeah, not at all.
Well, speaking of this is the best segue. This is the best segue I can do, Coach. I already used up all my cool phrases, but playing hard, you've got 3 freshman goal scorers early in the season. Again, all freshmen that have put it in the net. I'm sure that there's been more balance just in terms of effort given from both sophomores and freshmen. But can you talk about the guys who have been able to put some points on for you?
Yeah, Sean Koya, you've got him listed here first. Mm-hmm. He's from London. Brought him in at semester last year to get acclimated with the boys. He's a true freshman as well, straight out of secondary school. And he's a tremendous talent. He is a tremendous talent. Getting him to the point where we can maximize his athletic abilities and get them to coincide with the psychological aspect of being a good teammate is my mission with him, and I think, quite frankly, he's a guy that could really turn this conference on its head if he makes the right strides over the next couple of months. Guilherme Bittencourt, or GB as we call him, because we have 2 Guilhermes on our team. But I got to mention, and I haven't said this to him in person yet, but when I was recruiting Guy, he was incredibly enthusiastic. He wanted to play here. We spoke back and forth. He's from Brazil, and so getting our schedules aligned so that we could talk and responding to emails back and forth. And I don't think he'll be ashamed for me to say I had some questions about his fitness. I said, Guy, I love the film. I think that you're a great goal scorer, but I don't know if you're ready to play in the States, because what we lack in American soccer and technical ability, we make up for in sheer athleticism, and this conference speaks to that. In the end, we went with him. Because I liked what he could do, and we had a long talk about the type of guy he ought to be when he got here, and he was like an all new man, Zach. He looked fit. I could just tell that he'd put in work from signing his letter of intent to getting here in Coffeyville, and so hats off to that young man, and it shows. He's netted 2 goals in the first 2 games, and he's a guy that scores goals the way that you want people to score goals. He's a true number 9, and what that means is he's in and around the goal box. He's got a nose for it. He's a natural. He gets on the end of passes. So he has scored a penalty, of course, but he scored a great header. In preseason. He got on the board twice off of corner kicks and off of balls in, and so he's a guy that'll put any part of his body on it. You can basically just slam the ball towards the 6 and find GB in there, and he's going to find a way to put it in the net. And he accents Sean quite well, because Sean is a fancy off-the-ball kind of guy. I try and get him in isolation situations out wider. That way he can take advantage of his 1v1 ability, and then we allow GB to set through the middle there and kind of probe probe for what opens up, and those two have been really great.
Well, it seems like in other sports we call it like it has a feel for the game.
Yeah.
Just like almost a supernatural, like you can find.
They've got
a
a soccer IQ.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing out there, and that's not to overlook the boys that I'm playing in the midfield, because the three guys running through the midfield are doing it without flanking support, and so we're playing more strikers up high and less through the midfield. And so that means my midfield players are having to do so much more work to maintain possession and to create those opportunities. And those boys have been knocking the ball around so well in the midfield. It's been creating an opportunity for those defenders to step into bad positions, and for my strikers to read the game, like you said, and to get in behind them. And so we've been fortunate. The attack is clicking for the most part this early on in the season.
Well, yeah, you've only given up 2 goals through 2 games.
Yeah.
And sometimes, they say best defense is a good offense. So if you're putting constant pressure on teams, it's kind of tough for them to retaliate.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the general theme with the men this year. That's the way that we want to play is we want to force them to get out of danger, force other teams out of danger, and put us in positions where we can press them and then take advantage of mistakes that they may make or poor spacings that they may create within their own shape. And then just go at them and just keep it on. I want to play on their half as much as possible. And with Felipe Domingos returning in goal, he opens up a lot of opportunities for me to play at a more high-pressure style because let's just be fair. He's massive. He takes up the goal, and he can push forward. He can kind of play as a sweeper keeper. Anything that gets through that back line, he can cover spaces as much as 20 or 30 yards off of his line, off of his box.
Well, and he's not shy either.
No, he's a big fella,
yeah.
and he comes from a good soccer background, and his brother Rafa Domingos sits in front of him in an attacking mid position. So if Dirk and Ryan are listening, Rafael Domingos is not a striker. He plays in the midfield. There's 3 fellas up there calling themselves strikers, and Rafa's not one of them. And his presence in the midfield just is a lot. And so those guys in our spine, and coupled with some defensive players, some returners, Andre Johnson and Dylan Van Rensberger to be specific, have really set a tone, at least for some of these new guys coming in. And I'm playing a lot of sophomores, but the freshmen that are getting significant minutes are meshing well, and the guys coming off the bench are watching the style of play that I want. And I think that we've got a little more depth this year in as far as tactically doing things the way we want to do.
Well, and that's something every coach in every sport would obviously love, a lot of depth. But in soccer, I don't think the average, especially American, understands how big that field is and how long those games are. So having depth in game situations is great because those legs aren't as tired when you get down to the last few minutes. And then in practice, you have people to compete against, right? So the talent level will increase hypothetically, or you'd like it to, throughout the season. And then a tough conference like this, that's got to be able to be helpful.
Yeah, and that's kind of a recipe. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, if I'm only playing 15 guys, then our performance from the 85th or from the 75th through the 90th minute is going to be down no matter how fit we are. I mean, we're playing at least 2 games a week when we get into conference play, but this week alone we played Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So that's 3 games in 5 days for these boys. And so having guys that can come in and fill in the positions, and they're different faces, but they're doing the same jobs. And that's important to keep us kind of moving forward. And then I guess I hadn't gotten to him. Now, I'll give you a correction here, and this isn't on you guys, but Matt Carey, Overland Park, is a transfer.
Oh, okay.
He's a transfer. And we're really excited about Matt Carey because he's a Division I transfer.
Wow.
He played at Old Dominion in 2016, rather. We're fortunate to have him. Shows that it's a small world. After our 2015 campaign, we had some good players, and I had a young man named Edel Insaldo, and he was an all-conference midfielder for us and helped our team get to nationals the year before. And we got him an opportunity to visit Old Dominion during his recruitment process, which he eventually signed to Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne. But while he was on the plane on the way to Old Dominion, he sat next to Matt Carey, who was also on his recruiting trip to Old Dominion. He, of course, ended up signing at Old Dominion, playing a season there. But he was a true freshman playing at Old Dominion at a high level, and academically he kind of fell into some of those first-year attrition.
That's a tough school.
I mean, not only is it a 4-year Division I, but yeah, it's a good school, like you mentioned. I mean, it's a tough school. And so Matt left there and was a general student for a while, and when we found each other late in the spring, early summer, I think, he had academic work that he needed to do before he could even get a sniff of the playing field. And our first conversations started off with, well, when you get eligible, you can play in the spring. And then we did the research and looked for, got all the paperwork together to find out where he exactly stood. Got with our registrar, who she'll probably never ever see this, but it's a shout out to her. She checked through all the available scenarios for Matt Carey, and she put together a plan for him, and he passed 12 credit hours in a single term.
That is impressive.
Yes, and it's commitment.
Yes, and hard work.
Yeah, he wanted to get back on the field, and he did what he needed to do, completely free and clear, eligible before August 1 move-in day, and he's playing like it. And he's injured right now. I didn't play him last game at all. But we see Matt being a significant part of what we do moving forward. And to speak to that, he only played 20 minutes in that opening match at Metro, and he netted a goal inside of that time. And we said, okay, there's a bit of swag. Now get your butt back on the bench and put some ice on your ankle.
Right.
And so he's a gamer. He's a wee guy. I mean, he's probably 5'6", and he runs through players. He's got a natural ability to read the game and to cover for players. And not a shot at my team at all, but right now he's the only guy playing through my midfield that English is his first language, and so it helps me tremendously as far as communicating, because I've got great players in there, but sometimes I fall short in communicating 80 yards across the field what I'd like to have done, and having players like him and Rafa as a sophomore from Brazil, he's quite smart, and his English is fantastic, but that helps a lot with the communication, because Matt knows what I want to do. He came from a club that plays my style, and so he falls right into it, and he can help put these boys in line. And he's Kansas. He's a Kansas kid, and we're excited. We've got some very good Kansas kids on our team, but we're fortunate to have Matt Carey, and I'm excited about what he's going to do this season, because when you're given a second chance, as Coffeyville was for me. I really like his story, because I was a 4-year kid and had some health issues and took time off and found myself in a Red Raven uniform, and it opened up a lot of doors for me, and I think that Matt Carey will be that in spades. So.
Well, and he's obviously at the junior college level. He's older than these guys. So, and they obviously know his story. So for him to put that work in the classroom and on the field, it kind of eliminates some of the excuses for why they might not.
Well put.
So having those guys, and plus, again, it's just a nice story. You can be proud of the student athlete at that kind of situation, and it's it's fun to root for athletes and students. Yeah, that do that, and that's an awesome Coffey.
Yeah, he's doing well. So we're happy with the kid. So you're right in that he's a new face at Coffeyville, but he's technically a sophomore. I'll only get that for 1 year.
I told you my research skills were limited, Coach. I gave you that heads up.
You knew more than I thought you did here. I mean, I thought I was going to come with a whole bunch of information for you, and you got it all in.
That's the Zach Mitchell story. We didn't expect much, and he knew some stuff. So that's kind of my history. That's my Coffeyville story.
Oh, you turned that in the wrong way. No, not at all.
But we mentioned your three, I guess, goal scorers, not all freshmen here on my notes, but and then you mentioned how hard your midfield is working and everything. So starting from fall camp and to this point, how confident were you? What have you been impressed by with the growth? Just what are your general thoughts this early in the year?
Well, I have to be totally fair with you. I thought last year's team was going to do a lot better, and I put together a team in 2015 on the heels of a Nationals run that was really, really talented, and we didn't do well. We didn't have great years, so I wasn't pessimistic about how the season was going to go at all. I'm always optimistic, sometimes in a bad way, but I'm so hungry on the men's side, Zach. I mean, I played here. I love this program, and we're trying to do it a certain way here at Coffeyville. I'm not trying to flood the roster with all international kids. If you looked across the Jayhawk Conference, you'd struggle to find an American-born player on a 30-man roster. You really would.
Wow.
We have the second least amount of international men on a Jayhawk Conference roster in the entire league. And I've got 14. And so I'm from Kansas. I've wanted to win with our local talent, and I've got locals, and they're playing at a high level. But it took a while to get the right ratio, if you will, of international guys and American guys that would play my style. And I think this year we've got it. Last year we had the group to do it, and I think that there was just too much growth that needed to happen with those freshman kids who came in, and now those kids are sophomores, and they got their teeth kicked in a little bit last year, and they're not going to roll over and take it that way this year. And so I think that the hunger that I mentioned that I have to put together a season that's more respectable for the school I love, the program I love, and quite frankly, the guy that I took over for. I mean, I took over for Corey Fear, who was two-time Coach of the Year and just got off a region championship, and I played for him. And I want to do it right. Now, of course, immediately after Corey retired, they opened up the floodgates in the league, and now they allow all internationals, because previous to that you could only have 4 international guys on your team. So when our 2014 team went to nationals that year, it was 4 international guys and all Americans, players from there, and every other team was the same.
Right.
Every other team, even playing field all the way across the board, and so they have a great team, a great run, and then the format changes, and it's taken me a little while to get it figured out. And let's just put it this way, Zach, I will be really disappointed in myself, my staff, and my players if we don't finish top 3 this year.
Well, thinking about how other sports, at the junior college level, getting a team to mesh at anything is difficult, because you have people from all sorts of backgrounds. They have all sorts of personal goals they want to accomplish.
Yeah, but other coaches are doing it, so I can't use that excuse.
No, but we had mentioned, just kind of at a couple of practices, you mentioned the variety of languages spoken by your team. That's just, if we're trying to increase the degree of difficulty here, that's got to add something to it. So, but you've mentioned that trusting some of your sophomores, that even if English isn't their first language, they're intelligent, they're hardworking, and they've put the work in to help communicate for you. That could potentially pay dividends down the line.
I think so.
Through that growth, right?
I think so. And in the end, despite any records, we've had good groups come through here, and we move all those boys on, and they're better players when they leave. And so, we're doing that part of the job. It's just, getting the types of wins that we deserve to get. And I think, last year was year 3 for me. This is my 4th year with the men, and we've got all guys that we've recruited that we think fit the puzzle the way that we want for them to. And so far, 2 games in, record-wise, where we want to be, but we still got a lot of growth that needs to happen as a team and as a staff to be able to make sure that when the clock hits the 88th minute, that we're all still competing at the level that we started off on.
Well, you mentioned growth, and again, we're recording this on a Friday morning, so you've got a chance to grow a little bit more this evening at 5 o'clock versus Pratt at Veterans Memorial Stadium. I actually talked to your assistant coach, David. He mentioned that Pratt always plays tough.
They do.
And so what can you kind of talk about this upcoming game and what you would like to see from your team the next couple weeks?
Well, Pratt is always a special game for me. I spent 4 years as the head women's coach and assistant men's coach out at Pratt, and I worked with Coach Cooley during that time. He's a good friend of mine. One of my girls joked with me yesterday. She says, "Coach, how come the coaches that you say are good friends, you always get in arguments with on the field?" I say, because we are good friends and we don't like to lose to each other. Because same thing happened last year in the region semis against Hutch. Sammy Lane's a good friend of mine, from the same, basically cut from the same cloth as Kevin. They were professional coaches together at the Wings. And so this is a special game to me because I respect Kevin dearly. And I always want to beat him. I always want to beat him. He played professionally in Liverpool. He was a Dallas Tornadoes star back in the 80s. He's a Hall of Famer indoor leagues. He played against Pele when he was at the Cosmos. So Kevin is a standout guy. And I learned a lot from coaching with him. There's people that I know just because Kevin said Schicke's an all right guy, and for that I'll be forever grateful. Yeah. But putting all that aside, I want to win a big time tonight because there's a lot of me that goes into our performances and getting excited about a game is never tough to do. But getting excited about a game against a coach that you respect, who's got a roster full of guys that know they signed for a former professional player, and I'll be damned if I don't go out and play hard every game. I mean, I watched it with my own eyes. I mean, he's had a great run in his tenure at Pratt. They've won a Jayhawk championship, competed for a region title one year. He was coach of the year. I think that was in 2015, and so it's always a tough challenge. And I think Pratt will be a better indicator of where we're at, not just because it's 3 games versus the first 2 games, but they're a Jayhawk West opponent. Mm-hmm. Our first 2 games have been against non-conference teams that will compete in other regions, although NEO plays in our same district when it's all said and done. I think we'll know a lot more about ourselves at the end of 90 minutes tonight, and I hope that we're on the winning end of it. But I know no matter what, if we show up the way that I anticipate that we will, it'll make for a good night for anybody in the stands.
Well, and for broadcasters, we're always excited for just another chance to do it. But so far in 2-0 and early in this year, for us, the excitement's already been there. We're very happy to be there.
That means a lot to us because you guys do such a great job. You spend so much time out there. We like to put out a product that you guys are proud of.
We can keep the rain away.
It's been wet the last couple of years, especially the last week. I mean, but the great thing about Veterans Memorial Stadium and anybody else that's watching this, keep in mind that rain, sleet, or snow, it doesn't stop soccer matches out at that turf. It's a beautiful facility, and we'll wait out the rain. And like you and I saw last week, we took like 2 inches in 25 minutes and then cleared up and had a hell of a night. So
and it was a beautiful evening.
Yeah, it was. And so the ambiance of that stadium and what you guys do outside the lines, it adds for a great night. So we appreciate you guys.
Well, we're happy to be there, and again, we're looking forward to tonight. We're looking forward to the upcoming week when I think this next upcoming Wednesday, you start conference play.
Yep, Neo showed home. Yep. Neo showed home, and they are coming off of a very good year. They've had their men's teams have had very good years the last 3 years. They've finished in the top 2 or 3 of the league. They've moved on to the region semifinals, I think, in 2 of the last 3 years. So they're a team that we've got some history with as well. They're right up the road. So next week will be a good game. So 2 games in 2 days. We play today and tomorrow with the men, and then take a day off or so, and then hopefully we'll be ready for conference play next week.
Well, good luck, Coach. And again, we'll be out there. And
thank you for coming by.
Exactly.